Hi folks, it's Pete back with another attempt at a video. Hope you find it a bit more interesting than the last one. I managed to garner that much response after about 5 weeks. Until this week, thanks Niels. Anyway, yesterday was the Kendal Record Fair, the first in I think over 3 months. It's a small record fair, not many vendors, and to be honest, yesterday was even fewer. It's not the sort where you're going to find a lot of rarities or anything like that, but given the paucity of record shops etc. around here, it's a must do. But even despite that, I managed to come away with quite a bit of vinyl. Most of those came from the cheap bins, the £3, £5, 2 for £5. So hopefully they're going to be okay. I haven't had a chance yet to clean them and play them, but they look okay. So let's get started. There's a few to get through, so I won't say too much. First was Neil Young's Hawks and Doves. I think this was his first album of the 1980s, and it comes across, and I've read that it's a sort of a mishmash of stuff that from past sessions etc. that was done to get himself out of his reprise contract. It's only lasts about half an hour, and it's one of his more country albums. The second one was another Neil Young one. This is Old Ways from 1985. This was one he did after he'd moved to Geffen, and they were suing him for making unrepresentative albums. So he came out and did a full-on, I think, country album, or a sort of Harvest Mark II. Heard really good things about this though, so I'm looking forward to hearing it. Staying in a country vein, next up was Nitty Gritty Dirt Band with their album Uncle Charlie and His Dog Teddy. Nitty Gritty Dirt Band being a sort of country bluegrass band with pop and rock overtones. I've liked what I've heard in the past. I think this should be quite good. It's got Mike Nelson's Some of Shelley's Blues on it, their cover of Mr. Bojangles, which I think they had a hit single with. This is on this looks like a reissue on BGO Records, an English edition of the album. Next up, an artist probably not many have heard of, Dave Burland. Dave Burland is a British folk singer from Yorkshire. This is on the Trailer record label, and I think it's his second album, came out in 1972. I first came across Dave Burland when he took over vocal duties in the Newcastle electric folk band Hedgehog Pie, one of my favourite bands of that style. But for their third and final album, he took them in more of an acoustic direction rather than their full-on electric folk that they did previously. He also did an album later on of covers of Richard Thompson's songs. He's a good singer, so I'm looking forward to this. This is all traditional material, I think. Staying with the folk vein, the great Roy Harper, and his album Folk, Flat, Baroque and Berserk. This is his first album, I think, for Harvest. I think it's his fourth album in total. his first that he did for the Harvest label. It's, I think, all acoustic, barring the final track, Hell's Angels, on which he's backed by the Nice of all bands. It includes probably one of his most contentious and notorious songs, I Hate the White Man. And there's also a song called Another Day that I think was done as a duet by Kate Bush and Peter Gabriel on one of Kate Bush's TV specials, where he's a superb artist and an excellent guitarist. Next up is Paul Simon's very first album, the Paul Simon Songbook. This was released in 1965. I think it was after Simon and Garfunkel's first album, Wednesday Morning 3 AM. I think they basically split up because that hadn't been very successful. He came over to England, do the club circuits, folk club circuits, proved very popular, and was asked to record an album. This includes a lot of songs that were either already being done or will be done later by Simon and Garfunkel. I Am a Rock, April Come She Will, Sound of Silence, Kathy's Song, etc. This is all, I think, just him on acoustic guitar and nobody else. Looking forward to hearing this. I've never heard this album. Next up, two names that need no introduction, Graham Nash and David Crosby. This is their first duo album. It's on the Atlantic label. I can't say what year this was released. I've not heard this one either, though I know one or two of the songs, like Immigration Man, the Graham Nash song. This has the usual people on it: Ross Kunkel, Johnny Barbata, Greg Reeves, Leyland Sklar, Craig Dirge, Danny Cooch. But it also has Dave Mason on lead guitar on one track, Jerry Garcia on a couple of tracks, and the Dead's Billy Kreutzmann on drums on another. I've always liked their albums, so I don't think this will be any different. Next up, another favourite band, Quicksilver Messenger Service. Well, I think on this they were down to just Quicksilver. This is, I think, one of their later albums. It doesn't get necessarily good press, but obviously not as good as the first two. The first two are classics, but they're not. The albums of this period are not that bad. Most of the songs are written by a Jesse Orris Farrow, who actually turns out to be the vocalist Dino Valenti, their vocalist and guitarist Dino Valenti. But also on here you've got Gary Duncan, Greg Elmore, David Freiberg, and the great John Cipollina. So that's Quicksilver. What About Me? I think this was 1970, I think. Next up, another one that probably doesn't get great reviews necessarily, and that's Santana's Festival. At this point, Santana had gone in, after Borboleta and all the jazz fusion era, had gone into a sort of more of a pop rock vein, but they were still writing some decent stuff. I know some of these songs, like Carnival, Let the Music Set You Free, Let the Children Play, and others from live versions, and they're good songs. So I think this is probably going to be an enjoyable listen, if not quite up there with what had come previously. Next up, the great Mott the Hoople and their live album, a superb band. The first side was recorded in in 1974, May 1974 in New York, and the second side was December 73 at the Hammersmith Odeon in London. Excellent stuff. Tells all the young dudes on it, and all the way from Memphis as well. So great songs, great band. Next up, Wishbone Ash and their album 4. This was the last album by the classic lineup. There you have them, of Martin Turner, Andy Powell, Steve Upton and Ted Turner. Ted Turner was the one that was left after this album. They did get back together for a couple of albums later, I think in the 1990s or 2000s. But this was the last one of the original run of the band. Probably the weakest of the first 4 albums, but still some good stuff on here, like Ballad of the Beacon. Another one, you will see Cheap going on, Emerson, Lake and Palmer and their Works Volume 2. Again, piecemeal album, like Works Volume 1, solo and band stuff. But for me it's worth it just for the track what should have been the title track of Brain Salad Surgery album that's on here. I always wish they'd put that on the album instead of Benny the Bouncer. It would have fitted far better. It's also got Greg Lake's great Christmas song, I Believe in Father Christmas. Nice stuff. Go. Next up, Steve Miller Band and The Joker. I always find that back cover scary. That I don't like dolls, and that looks like a scary doll's face. And but never mind. This is obviously famous for the title track, which I've always loved. It's a great track. I'm not sure what the rest of the album's like, but I've got most of his albums now, and there's not much I don't like. Going into a more progressive vein, got 2 albums by Steve Hackett. First being Spectral Mornings. Don't have much by, in fact I've only got the one on vinyl, his first album, which is an excellent album. This is his 3rd album, which was meant to be a return to form after this second one, which was meant to be a bit uneven. I know some of the songs, like Clocks, from live versions, so I think this should be quite good reading up about it. The next one is his 1982 album, Highly Strung. Now I understand that this goes in a more commercial direction, so I'm not so certain how much I like this, but it was cheap. It's a promo copy as well, so I think it's worth giving it a go, seeing what it's like. Next up we have the Japanese synthesist, Kitaro, and his album Tunhuang. This is actually volume 3 of his Silk Roads trilogy, which, if I'm not mistaken, was music used in a TV series, documentary series, I think. Kitaro can be a bit new age-ish, but in the right mood, late at night, nice listen. So I've got quite a number of his albums. Next, the great Phil Manzanera and 801. This is their only studio album. there was the Superb 801 Live, which is a classic album. But this is, like I said, their only studio album. Though, to be fair, I don't really know why it's called an 801 album. It's, given the number of players on here, it looks more like a Phil Manzanera solo album. I mean, you have Mel Collins, Cremen Godley, Eno, Eddie Jobson, Bill McCormick, Dave Mattox, Francis Monkman, Simon Phillips. Great names all, and the vocals are done by a Simon Ainley, whose name I don't recognise, so I don't know. Not heard this, but if it's anything as good as the 801 Live album, it'll be excellent. Down to the last two, excuse me, and first up we have Kingdom Come, the self-titled album, or better known as Arthur Brown's Kingdom Come. When his band, The Crazy World of Arthur Brown, split up, this is the band he formed, I think was it 1970 or so? They formed, I can't remember now exactly. They did 3 albums, this is the second. Pretty much an album of its time, described somewhere I read as the nice meets gong, so it should be good stuff. If you really want to check them out, try their 3rd album, Journey. That is superb, but that's more electronic with a drum machine, krautrockish in places, the Cosmic vibe there, and he did some of that material. He did one of the tracks when he was playing with Hawkwind, so you can guess what sort of music there's on that. This will still be good though. And finally, the only new album, although I think it's an unofficial one, is Alice Coltrane's Ptah El Daoud, an album which features Pharoah Sanders and Joe Henderson. I like the music of Alice Coltrane. I've got her Journey album, and that's superb, so I think this should be quite good. So those were my purchases yesterday. I hope you found that of interest. I'll take this chance to wish everybody on the VC a very happy Christmas and all the best for the new year. Couldn't be much worse, could it, in many ways? So just take care, stay safe, stay sensible. All the very best. Bye.